Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2020 Nyla annual membership meeting. We'll be getting started in just a few minutes, but in the interim, just some housekeeping notes for you. We will be recording today's session along with all the conference sessions. So they will be available in an archive format for you. We will have the opportunity for you to interact at the bottom portion of the meeting under the good of the order. On the conference website, if you scroll down below the video feed, you'll find at the bottom of the page, you'll find a files section. And on the files section, you will find the meeting materials packet for today. So you can click on that PDF and have the materials packet that you would have found on the table as you grabbed your breakfast. So have that information right in front of you. Excited to see so many people joining with us today. We're over 200 folks, and somehow you're all here and we don't even have any bacon. So there you go. It's always bacon in bylaws, but we're sans bacon and still you're here. So thanks to you all for showing up to hear about the current state of operations with Nyla. The chat pane is available to you on Feedloop, which is the conference site off to the side. Just noticing Angela Newman's comment that it is bring your own bacon this year, BYOB. So, and just in case you haven't had the pleasure of joining us for a Nyla annual membership meeting in the past, the hashtag for the annual membership meeting for a few years now has been bacon in bylaws, because we have this meeting in conjunction with a hot breakfast because it makes people show up. So, but here you are all proving that theory wrong. So without further ado, I will turn things over to Nyla President, Dr. Jennifer Cannell.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for coming, everyone. Welcome to the Nyla 2020 virtual conference and the 2020 Nyla membership meeting. Hashtag best virtual conference ever, and hashtag no bacon and no bylaws. Sorry about that. I'm Jen Cannell, Nyla President, and I have the honor of presiding over today's meeting. We'll call the meeting to order, and it is 11:02. Thanks, everyone, for being here. The first thing that we have to do is take a look at the adoption of the rules, and to the best of our ability, we will be following Robert's Rules of Order. Should you wish to be recognized to speak, please click the raise your hand button or list your questions or comments in the chat. The agenda is on the screen. Not on the screen, it's in the packet. And please note in the chat if there's anything that you would like requested being added to the agenda. And the first thing that I would like to request under new business for the good of the order is Tim Fergal, who will be sharing pathways to librarianship. So we'll note that as being added to the agenda. So if there's anything else you'd like, please go ahead and add it to the chat now. All right, I'm not seeing anything, so we'll go ahead and approve the agenda by unanimous consent. All right, I'd like to refer you to the minutes in the material packet, which is in Feedloop. The minutes were from the 2019 membership meeting, so a whole year ago. Those minutes were approved by Nyla Council at the December 13th, 2019 meeting. That's something that council approves, just because a whole year later, having this group approve it just seems like a very difficult task to ask you to do. So just making sure that you know that those are available there. The minutes from this meeting will be approved by council at their December meeting, just so that you're aware. And then next up, I'd like to introduce all of our council members and the Nyla staff. Inside the packet, you will see a full listing of council members, and it's going to take a minute, so I apologize for that, but these are people who have volunteered a lot of time to Nyla and to all of you as Nyla members, and so I would like to recognize each of them. I know Jeremy was going to pull them up, so on the Nyla website, their pictures are there, which is wonderful for all of you to be able to see, but I'll go ahead and begin introducing them now. So you already know me. Hi everyone, I'm your president, Jen Cannell. President-elect is Claudia Depkin. Your immediate past president is Michelle Young. Roger Reyes is your treasurer. We have Grace Riario, who is your treasurer-elect. Cassie Guthrie is the ALA chapter counselor. Ryan Perry is the academic and special libraries section representative. Lisa Wamette is the Friends of Libraries section representative. Tim Fergal is the leadership and management section representative. Jean Curry is the Library Trustees Association section representative. Kelly Yim is the Public Library section representative. Dana Sinclair is the Reference and Adult Services section representative. Todd Schlitt is the Suffolk County Library Association representative. Rosemarie Gatzik is the section on Management and Information Resources and Technology representative. Tara Thibault Edmonds is the section of School Librarians representative. Amanda Schiavulli is the Youth Services section representative. And then your counselors at large are Stephanie Hartwell Mandela, Stacy Ratner, Jane Vistoric, Thomas Vitale, Anna Canino Fluitt, and Simone Yearwood. And then Nyla staff, I would also like to introduce you to Jeremy Johannesson, who you know well. Bree McNamee is the Director of Government Relations and Advocacy. Becky Chernobyl is the Professional Development Manager. And Christina Romeo is the Communications and Marketing Manager. And Colleen Smith is the Finance and Administration Manager. Also of note, during the 2019-2020 fiscal year, an independent organizational review brought about a staffing restructuring that resulted in the elimination of the Director of Finance and Director of Membership Services positions. We offer our collective thanks to Galena Seigenbaum and Lois Powell for their combined over 35 years of service. I just really want to make sure that I say thank you to council and thank you to Nyla staff for a really difficult year, but for all of the work that they've put in over this past year. So thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jeremy, for pulling everyone up so we could see their pictures too. I appreciate that. All right, so let's see, introduction. Oh, next up is President's Report. All right, so this is where I get to tell you some of the work that's happened. The first thing that I want to do is just share a little bit. Well, I'm sorry, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and read this, and I apologize for doing that. I believe all things are possible with hard work, determination, and a coalition of willing partners. We can accomplish anything we set our minds to. In my naivete, I often forget that barriers are set up that keep us from doing just that. When I became president of the New York Library Association, I stood before you and announced strengthening our core as my theme for this year. My hope was to look at the operations of our organization through the lens of our core values and determine how best we can ensure that these values are driving our actions. In essence, we would be modeling the practices, policies, procedures we hope to see in every one of our libraries. We would begin with a deep look at our strategic plan. 3 in-person meetings with council were planned to discuss our guiding principles. Nyla advocates for the New York library community. Nyla advances excellence in New York libraries, and Nyla enhances member engagement. At my favorite council meeting of the year, we took a close look at that third principle. We discussed community engagement in detail. We see success stories from across our state in all different types of libraries. How can we transform those ideas into practice that are successful for our organization? After all, we are also a community. With the pandemic, it just did not seem feasible to move forward with plans to create a strategic plan. Everyone was adapting to new work conditions, serious health concerns, financial concerns, and more. Now that we are moving into a more permanent reality of what this pandemic may mean for our libraries and our organization, it is time to consider developing the strategic plan again. I am sorry that I am not the president to bring you a new strategic plan. However, I am very excited to work with Claudia Depkin as she pursues this effort. I'm happy to pass everything that has already been created to her, but I am also happy to support her vision for how this work should be completed and how the new plan should be developed. After this past year, I do believe that we have work to do if we want to fully achieve our guiding principles for all types of libraries and library employees. There are a couple different groups that I absolutely wanted to make sure I recognize. And of course, I just introduced you to council, but I did want to say how honored I feel to have had this opportunity to work with council. The level of commitment that each council member has provided to the unit they represent and to Nyla as a whole is astounding. So thank you. The committees. The operation of Nyla is supported by the work of committees. And as a reminder, this is all volunteer work. So while our committee members were dealing with so much uncertainty and change, they were still willing to provide their time and expertise to Nyla. Thank you. To our members, you'll hear me say it throughout conference, but wow. My first Nyla experience was in 1998, and I've been hooked ever since, and it's because of all of you. This year, more than ever, you've taught me so many valuable lessons that I needed. I hope that in some small way, I've been able to give back to you. The conversations that we have had this year have meant so much. In the darkest days of the pandemic, I've had a file of messages I've received from you that I would look back at, and I would know that everything would be okay. And please know how much this matters. You matter. Thank you. And then, of course, to the Nyla staff. There have been major transitions this year, and each of you has weathered this storm. And I wanted to say something individually about each staff member, but every time I tried rehearsing this, I ended up crying. It's been that kind of a week. So just know how grateful I am, and I promise that I'm going to write to you individually because you each deserve to know what I intended to say. So thank you. And I cannot wait to see how you grow as a team and what happens over these next years. One of the things that I tried to do in each of my reports to council was to put my thoughts together in terms of themes. And so as I summarized for this report and looked back at my reports to council, I wanted to take a look at those themes. And what I realized that this work this past year focused on was leading, learning, educating, advocating, changing, and sharing. This has been a year. I'm so proud of council, committees, staff, and membership. I thank all of you for this opportunity to serve as your president. Thanks, everyone. All right, so now I turn it over to Roger for the treasurer's report.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. We're all good, Jeremy? Okay.
We are. Would you? I can put the report up on the screen if you'd like, Roger.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could put the financial report.
Sure.
So I just want to start out by going over a very simplified version of the finances for Nyla for the 2019-2020 year. We'll look at the income statement, and we're going to look at the revenues for the year, what we anticipated. Your first column is what we have budgeted. The second column will be actual. Third column is your percentage. So just looking at our some items that might be a concern or people might want to talk about and understand a little better. We had anticipated $727,000 in income. We actually came out with $688,000 in income. So some of the line items that you want to note, our Nyla membership was down a bit, about 74% of what was anticipated. Again, 2020 was really a challenging year for Nyla and for the whole country. And we did our best with a time where we were looking at a smooth transition and operational organizational changes, and they were very much disrupted halfway through the process. So I think Jeremy and the staff will be able to pick that up next year and really get back on track with our membership. Looking down at advocacy support under revenues, you can see we were 207% over a $43,000 surplus. And that was mainly due to support from NIALS for the Director of Government Relations and Advocacy position. When we were under reorganization last year, we weren't certain that money would come in, so we didn't want to count our chickens before they hatch, and we did not put that in the budget because we weren't certain of that income. But fortunately, it came across for us, and ran a great job for us with that money. Well spent. Under miscellaneous / rent, you'll see that we're at 306% over the budget, and that is mostly due to grant funds that we received for the technical upgrades in the conference room at Nyla. And down on the bottom of the revenues page, you see a total revenue restricted temporary. Just so everybody understands what that is, those are funds that are donated to Nyla from different organizations and peoples that go towards a dedicated thing, such as scholarships. So that money is kind of pass-through money. It comes into Nyla, it's dedicated, it's restricted to be used for one purpose only, so it's not really reflected up above in our operational portion of the budget. So we'll go to the expense side. And on the expense page, you'll see that professional fees is one item that kind of blares out, that at 163%, we were over that by about $6,000. And that has to do with the preparation of the documents for our staff reorganization. We had legal fees associated with the reorganization, and they just happened to come up a little higher than we anticipated. But overall, you can see it did a good job keeping all of his other expenses down to make up for that. Under the professional development, if you just take a comparison, I'll read off the numbers from page 1. On the annual conference, our income was $292,000. Our expenses were $141,000. So the conference made about $150,000 last year. And on continuing education, it was about $42,000 in income and $22,000 in expenses for a $20,000 income on those columns. So kudos to Jeremy and the staff for getting that money to the business and keeping everything running in good order. If you look down toward the bottom of the page, we will see that our anticipated budget was on revenues was $727,000. We came in at $687,000. Our expenses at $759,000, and we came in at $707,000. So we had an anticipated $32,000 deficit budget anticipated, and that was, due to the changes we were making organizationally, and we understood that, and we set forth with it, and they were able to cut that to a $19,000 deficit. Again, just kudos to them for getting through it all and doing better than we anticipated. And this year we also set forth a budget with a larger deficit, because we understand the financial climate. And we challenged Jeremy when we passed the budget. We said, Jeremy, here it is. We hope you can do what you've done in the past, like he did this year, and make us look better than we were anticipating. So that's just our hopes for this year. We did meet the entire council on October 29th with the full council with our independent auditor. They did provide us a report. This is a very simplified version. He provided an expanded version, including all of our roundtables and all of our sections, much more detailed. And it was approved and accepted by council, and there were no operational deficiencies that we needed to be aware of or any of the membership needs to be aware of at this time. And that's all I have on the finances. Unless, Jeremy, if you'd like to add anything that I've, glossed over in my haste.
No, thank you, Roger, and to Grace as well, and the entire council for their oversight.
Thank you, Roger. All right. So next up is the report on the Nyla election for 2020. The first thing I'd like to do is thank the nominating committee, which was led by Michelle Young, and all who participated in the election. So Beth Merkel from the Strong National Museum of Play was elected as our president-elect. She will serve in that position from 2020 to 2021, and she will be our president from 2021 to 2022. Christina Graves is from Schenectady City Schools, and she will be our counselor at large from 2020 to 2023. And then we have Lisa Kropp, who is from Lindenhurst Public Library, who will serve as counselor at large from 2020 to 2023. And you'll notice that there's a little asterisk there because Stephanie Hartwell Mandela was elected to the seat by popular vote, but resigned the post, and she has moved out of state. And so Lisa Kropp has moved into the position. There were 4 people who ran for that seat, and Lisa had received the second highest number of votes. Jeremy, would you like to give us your director's report?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jen. It's my pleasure to report to the membership annually. I'm missing being with you all in person, but also excited to see, I think we have more people here online than we would have had at 8 o'clock in the morning in Saratoga. So thank you all for joining in. In the packet, again, which on the conference page, if you're logged into the conference page, is below the video feed at the bottom of the page under the files section is the PDF of the materials that we've been referring to. My report is there in its entirety, so I won't read the whole thing to you. But this is certainly, as you're all aware, a tale of 2 years. There were the before times, as Becky has taken to calling them, and then everything that happened from about March 15th on. So the first 3 quarters of Nyla's operating year were pretty standard fare. We had a very successful conference in Saratoga this past year with a solid attendance of sorry about that, almost 1,300 people in Saratoga last year. And just for sake of comparison, we're at over 750 here online registered. So not a bad showing for this year, which we'll hear more about hopefully in person next year. As we move through the year, the Developing Leaders program took the place of the Leadership and Management Academy, which had been in place for over a decade. And the reimagining of the program took it from a rolling admission program with core requirements and moved it to a 1-year program, a 9-month program that allows us to have cohorts move through the program, building some sharing and camaraderie among the participants. And that program is about to kick off for its 2nd year. We had 30 participants finish in the first year. And this year, like just about everything, it's transitioning to an all online delivery. And we'll be announcing the accepted participants into this year's cohort. So we're excited for that. Similarly, the Library Skills Academy, which targets new to the field folks, as well as those serving in library assistant and support staff roles, will continue. We're doing the work to transition that program into all online delivery as well. So look for information for that. Our first offering of the online Library Skills Academy will be happening early in 2021. On the advocacy front, it was a session like no other. Bree would be quick to point out for us that it's a session that's still ongoing. They really haven't even ended the 2020 session as yet, as opposed to the typical January to June session. It was a challenging year as COVID was just on the horizon as we were moving through the process, and yet the budget was already looking challenging for New York State. We saw the governor put forward his favorite numbers relative to library aid, $91.6 million for library aid and $14 million for construction, which were significant reductions in both of those lines. The proposed reductions to aid were halved. We took his $5 million cut and were able to restore half of it, leaving aid to end at $91.4 million. We were not as fortunate with the construction aid program, which took a significant slide, going from $34 million that we had significant wins in the past 2 previous years, and those were erased, and back to the governor's number of $14 million for construction aid. Right around the time that the budget should have been moving through its normal process and finishing up is when the pandemic really arrived in full force, derailing the standard process for the budget that we're very much used to. Those of you that follow closely know that no one House bills were even released this year. So it really was a challenge for us to use some of our standard tactics. So the results that we had were certainly hard won in a different model. And as the session continued, we were able to secure the passage of a bill, which is the Library Construction Project Expansion Bill. And what that allows is for those individual libraries that are in process with a construction project, it provided them with an additional 12 months to complete the project, recognizing that they were going to lose significant time to the pandemic shutdown. Thanks to our sponsors on that bill, which were Senator Mayer, and Assemblymember Ryan. In addition to that, as Jen mentioned, we went through some significant changes here. Staffing, the reorganization that was mentioned was put forward in consultation with an independent consultant, Sandra Nelson, that some of you may recognize that name, and made a hard look at our operations and our very small and limited resources and how best to leverage those for the benefit of the membership. It did result in some changing over of our staffing and the creation of a new position. So we now have a professional development manager position that many of you know. Becky Chernobyl is serving in that role. I also do want to note for the membership, many of you had gotten to know Kelsey Dorado, that had served in the communications and marketing position for 3 years. She has moved on. She accepted a fellowship within state government and then has completed that and moved on in her career, but we thank her for her years of service as well. And we welcome Christina Romeo, who has filled that position and is doing phenomenal work. And finally, well, not finally, but Bree McNamee is now our Director of Government Relations and Advocacy and has not even been with us for a year, although it's been a very long and challenging year. And so she's done phenomenal work in helping us guide our way through the pandemic times. I imagine just about all of you have at one point or another come across her fine work of distilling down the governor's executive orders. At last count, I believe we're at 74, and she's done a fantastic job of taking that information and bringing it down into a digestible and understandable format. And I know that it's not just benefited all of the Nyla membership, but I know there's other associations that are scooping up her work and sharing it out as well. Staffing wise, I do also just want to welcome Colleen Smith, who has filled the newly created position of Finance and Administration Manager, which is a combined position, and is taking on the challenging task of managing all of Nyla's financial operations as well as maintaining our membership database. And so in closing, I'll just state that I'm thankful for the opportunity to do this work. I'm thankful for the council and for the staff, and I'm thankful for the membership as a whole. This has been a challenging year. It's the first time in my tenure with Nyla where I've seen such sharp divisions in the membership during the shutdown period, trying to determine how best to manage that. And then as we're reimagining libraries and bringing things back online, how best to go about that. And there have been tremendous latitude and differences across the membership about how best to do that. We've worked hard to try and thread the needle, if you will, and try to provide information that's in best alignment with what everyone needs. And at the same time, recognizing that library decisions are always best made locally, and trying to provide you with the best information that we possibly can to support the hard work that you're all doing. On a lighter note, I'll just say that I am inspired and awed by the flexibility and the evolution of the library community in the last 8 months. I've seen many of you make comments online in one forum or another that libraries didn't close, they just changed the delivery method. So many things have moved online, from story time and chat reference to the delivery of electronic materials, and now we're back into circulating via curbside. And figuring out new ways to meet the needs of the community, which have only grown in the last 8 months. So I thank you all for the work that you're doing day to day, and ask you all to continue to reach out to the staff so that we know how best to serve you, what your needs are, and what things we might be missing. Because at the end of the day, we're here on your membership dollars, and we're here to support you as best as we possibly can. It will be an exciting and interesting 2021. I think, like many of you, ready to turn the calendar and move forward into a new reality. So we'll work on this together. And I will say, as I always do, never, ever hesitate to contact me. I'm here to take your calls and your emails, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Jeremy. Okay, up is new business. And so member comments for the good of the order. And first will be Tim Fergal to tell us about a new task force on pathways to librarianship. Tim.
Great. Thank you so much, Jen. Good morning, everyone. How's my audio sound? Jeremy, everything copacetic? Great. I would like to first and foremost thank Jeremy, Jen, and Claudia for inviting me to speak before all of you today. It's a strange format, but it's still very exciting to be attending the best conference ever with all of you. Before I get into the business about alternative pathways to librarianship, I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to the Nyla staff, the conference curators, and the Continuing Education Committee for their extraordinary effort in making the next 48 hours the brightest spot in an otherwise dismal year. The care and thoughtfulness that went into making this program a success under rapidly changing conditions is remarkable and should be applauded. As Jen had alluded to, I'm happy to announce that the New York Library Association is seeking individuals who are interested in creating a more diverse professional community through a lens of systemic change to join a newly created task force exploring alternative pathways leading to the attainment of a graduate degree in library science. We invite anyone interested in more information to attend a town hall scheduled on Thursday, December 3rd at 3 p.m. The composition of the multi-sector task force will seek to be as inclusive as possible. We're looking for geographic diversity among a broad pool of non-degreed clerks and paraprofessionals working in libraries, deans and directors, and librarians across all disciplines and specializations. A master's degree in library or information science is not necessary for consideration. We acknowledge that major systemic inequities exist that disproportionately affect Black, Indigenous, and people of color from entering, thriving, and being retained in the profession. These people are choosing success outside of libraries and are some of the most educated people in the country when compared to their peer groups. We have known this for years. We have had the data on educational attainment and library school enrollment for years, and we have done nothing to address the cultural and systemic rot at the heart of our profession that repulses these qualified individuals from participating in librarianship. These groups represent the global majority and are utterly absent from our profession. The problems are with librarianship and consequently with the New York Library Association. We recognize our historical shortcomings and failures as an organization to enact meaningful reform through policy or advocacy. We cannot wait another day to address this issue head on. We cannot keep placing the blame on the shortcomings of our national organizations, on our state and local civil service, or on these marginalized groups. Organizations are made of people, and the values of our organizations should be a reflection of our members' commitments to diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. We can do better, and we will. In the words of Angela Davis, you have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world, and you have to do it all the time. Radically transforming librarianship is not a singular act undertaken by one or two people in a cloistered room. It requires everyone, constantly. We look forward to partnership opportunities and expect to be working closely with the newly created Civil Service Committee of Nyla. We cannot be limited by our old systems and our old ways of thinking. A friend and colleague recently introduced me to Ida Merriam in Decolonizing Design's framework of belonging, dignity, and justice. I was absolutely blown away by it, and this is the work we aspire to in our communities. Could you imagine what our association would look like if these were our guiding practices? If our LIS education was centered on these principles? I know many of you will be in utter disbelief, but can you try to imagine if our civil service looked like this? This task force will be our first attempt at realizing an equitable, straightforward path towards librarianship for all people. Before I give the podium back to my colleagues, I want to leave you with some hope and a poem. For those of you who know me, this should not come as a surprise. I'm a big fan of everyday poetry. The poem I've chosen is Good Bones by Maggie Smith. Life is short, though I keep this from my children. Life is short, and I'm short in mine in 1,000 delicious, ill-advised ways. 1,000 deliciously ill-advised ways I'll keep from my children. The world is at least 50% terrible, and that's a conservative estimate, though I keep this from my children. For every bird, there is a stone thrown at a bird. For every loved child, a child broken, bagged, sunk in a lake. Life is short, and the world is at least half terrible, and for every kind stranger, there is one who would break you, though I keep this from my children. I am trying to sell them the world. Any decent realtor, walking you through a real shithole, chirps on about good bones. This place could be beautiful, right? You could make this place beautiful. We have work to do. We have to start now. Nyla needs your help. Thank you for listening. And again, if you're interested in participating in this task force, please reach out to Nyla or join us at the town hall on December 3rd at 3 p.m. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Tim. Wow, that's inspiring. We have work to do. You'll be seeing a message go out, and I hope you will all consider joining us. The meeting is Thursday, December 3rd at 3 p.m. So you'll get more information about that. Thanks, Tim, for your work. There's been a group that's been working on that, and you'll hear more about that too at tomorrow's President's Forum at 9:15. So a plug for that as well. I did also want to make sure that I recognize Mandy Travis too for her work in putting together this conference. She's our 2020 conference chair, and she's been working closely with all of the conference curators and the Nyla team. And I have to say, I mean, this has only been going on for a couple hours, but in the last couple days exploring Feed Loop, and I participated in one of the on-demand sessions yesterday, and everything that's going on so far. You have all done a phenomenal job with putting together the conference. So thank you everyone for your work in this phenomenal conference so far. Truly is the best conference ever. We can add the virtual if you feel the need, but it really is wonderful. Anything else for good of the order? You can add to the chat or raise your hand. I'm seeing nothing. All right. So thank you everyone for participating. We are going to adjourn by unanimous consent. Thanks for coming, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. I'll jump in as everyone's finding that. We are officially adjourned. So thank you again for participating. A couple of housekeeping notes. If you haven't jumped out of the room yet, I'll remind you that you got a little bit of time, 20 minutes before the lunch and learns. You got two choices to make between the Intellectual Freedom Roundtables program with Aaron Berman, and which is privacy, make it happen. And the other Lunch and Learn happening concurrently is sponsored by the Empire State Library Network, ESLN, and that is with Meredith Farkas. So check both of those out. You can access those by hitting the Sessions tab and just click into those rooms. So enjoy those. We'll also remind you to visit the exhibitors if you would. Check out that, and you have the opportunity to connect them. And also all of our award winners, as you know, in this format, we don't have an inaugural banquet to recognize our award winners. So the award winners have recorded their acceptance speeches as well as their presentations. So check those out in the on-demand content. You'll find those speeches. So please do give them a spin and an opportunity to see what we've recognized in the best and brightest in New York State. So enjoy. We are, the staff and myself are on Feedloop and all over trying to make sure we're answering your questions and keeping all this technical stuff taped together in the background. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of the conference. I will no doubt see you around.